Hello everyone, this is your friend SG, and from this video we'll be starting a React interview questions series. So in this series we'll be covering all the important questions that could be asked in a React interview. Okay, so if you haven't watched my previous video yet, firstly go watch it. You'll know what this sheet is all about, how to access it, and how you can use this sheet efficiently. So go watch the introductory part first and then resume from here. Okay, so this is the very first part where we'll be covering this part. We'll be covering all the basic React interview questions that could be asked from you in an interview. Okay, so let's just begin the video and start the questions. Okay, so the very first question is, what are the different features of React? So the very first feature of React is it uses JSX and different components. So what is JSX? JSX is JavaScript XML. It looks similar to HTML, but in working it's very much different from that. It's nothing like HTML. JSX is not readable by JavaScript. So for that, a trans compiler called Babel, it comes into use, which converts JSX into a JavaScript readable code, and then it is rendered on the websites. This complete process, it makes the working of React very much smooth, and it makes it much efficient and a bit faster as well. So that's why JSX is used nowadays with React. What are components? Components are different building blocks of React. So each let's consider a case where you are working on a big project in your company. So uh, along with you there are 10 different people, so you all work on React's single project. Now each person can create different components of React's application, and afterwards when all of them are done, they could be merged. This merging process, it won't affect any other component. So if you created component X, then when your component goes into the application, it won't affect any other component. So this is the feature of React. It increases its efficiency. 10 different people working on a single project can work simultaneously without affecting anyone other's code. Now the next feature is server-side data processing. This server-side data processing, what it does, a React application's code, it is first sent to the server, then the server renders it and again sent back to the client. Now when it's sent back to the client, you can say that why we want to render this twice. First we are sending it to server, then from server it's again being sent to the client, and then it is rendered. Why do this complicated process? This complicated process, it helps in search engine optimization, SEO. That's why React is said to be very much friendly for SEO. The React websites which are present on internet, they are very familiar, very efficient with SEO. On when you are searching, you will see the websites which are made with React on the top as compared to the other websites which are made with other frameworks or native languages. So this is when server-side data processing comes into use. Next feature is virtual DOM. I guess if you are working with React, you must have heard this term virtual DOM somewhere in your career till now. So what is virtual DOM? It is a sort of a copy of the actual DOM that the web browser has created, but it is very light as compared to the actual one. Making operations and making any modifications to this, they are also cheap and efficient as compared to working with actual DOM. So working with virtual DOM, it increases React's speed. It has to make changes to virtual DOM, not directly to the actual DOM. Next feature is lifecycle systems. So we all must have heard about the lifecycle methods, what they are. So lifecycle methods are like the different methods that we can access during the life of a component. From its birth to its destruction, we have different methods which could be accessed during different times. And let's say we have to perform some process, we have to call an API, let's say, when the app component is created. So there is a different method for that. We just invoke that method and make the API call inside that. Now we had invoked that method, and let's say we want to call some another API at the time of destruction of the component. So for that there is some other component. So we can perform different actions at different stages in the component's life. So this is what lifecycle system helps us in. The last feature of React is single direction data flow model. And I guess this is the most important and the best feature of React amongst all. What is this? As the name suggests, single direction data flow. The flow of data in React, it's unidirectional. The data is always flowing from the parent to the child. It is always flowing from top to bottom. Let's say there is a component and some state changes are made in that. So those state changes won't affect its sibling components, neither its parent component. They will only and only affect this component and its child components. So this is what single direction data flow model means. This is the very important feature of React. That is very useful. Okay. So with this, we come to next question. That is, what is Create React app? So Create React app, it is a comfortable environment for learning React. It generates a React template project or a front-end build pipeline. React template project. So when we are working with React, as I told before as well, that it uses JSX, and JSX is not directly readable by JavaScript. It is not directly understood by JavaScript. So to convert this JSX, we need a trans compiler called Babel. So now, if you had to create a React project on your own from the very scratch, then you'll have to configure Babel and some other dependencies, some extra packages and libraries as well for us to work with React. But Create React app, it provides us all those tools in a single folder. We don't have to worry anything about Babel or extra dependency, compiling the React code, anything. We just have to start working. We can directly write the code and compile it. So this is what Create React app does. It sets up the development environment so that we can use the latest JavaScript features. In order to work with Create React app, we'll have to firstly install it. Then to use it, we can run the command npx create react app and then the project name. So it will give us a project structure like this. It has a lot of folders, node modules, some HTML files, logos. In this src, it is the main folder where we work. Okay, so now we can navigate to a project, and to start the React application, we can use the command npm start. Okay, yes. So the next question is, what are the limitations of React? If there are some features, then there are some operations that it couldn't perform. So those are the limitations. What are the limitations? Very first limitation is it has a very large size library. Why? We saw that React uses Create React app. So, and it gives us a lot of folders and a lot of files as well. So because of that, the size of that library, the size of that project, it increases, which is not very good. So the project of the folder, the size of the application, it should be as small as possible, as less as possible. So yes, so another limitation is HTML attribute names are case sensitive. So we have to ensure this using names. So whenever we work with any HTML attribute inside React, those names are case sensitive. So we'll have to keep in mind where to use small and where to use capital letters. Next is, it is a UI library only. So React only works on the UI part of a web application. If we have to add some extra functionalities to it, we'll have to add some extra third-party libraries or some frameworks. Let's say to maintain the application state, we use Redux. So React also provides us good state management, but it's not very much efficient in case of large size projects. So for that, we have to use Redux. This is another limitation. And the last is poor documentation. If you have been working with React for quite a long time, then you might understand that React continuously evolves. It's growing day by day. So with this fast pace of evolution, the developers of the community or the developers working behind React, they are not able to maintain a proper documentation. And because of this, the people, the developers who work with React, they are not able to understand it properly, and they make their own assumptions. So if you see React's code of different developers, you will find that every developer uses some different project structure. There is no uniformity throughout the developer community in terms of project structure. This is just one example where documentation is lagging. There are a lot of other parts as well. Okay, so if the documentation could have been good, then there might have been a uniformity throughout the community and all the people might have been using the same project structure and other features. Okay, so next question is, what are events in React? So any action that we perform on the web application or the action that a system generates, it is an event. Any action that could be triggered as a result of user action or a system generated event, it is called event. Okay, so let's say we hover over a button, that's an event. We click on a button, that's an event. We load the website, that's an event. These all are events. React events are named using camel case rather than lowercase or any other custom naming conventions. So if you see, this is in name camel case. This is the event name on click. So the first letter is small o and the first letter of next consecutive words are capital. The C of click is capital. This is camel case. We'll have to keep this in mind. We need to use camel case while working with events. React event handlers are written inside curly braces. What are event handlers? They are the functions which are invoked on call of an event. So on click, there was an event handler associated with it, handle click. So this was passed inside curly braces. Some events include on click, on load, on submit, etc. These are the common events which we encounter in our day-to-day working with React. Next question is, what are the synthetic events in React? So synthetic events, React has its own event handling system, which is known as synthetic events. The synthetic event is a cross-browser wrapper of browser's native event. Okay, so let's just understand this with an example. Let's consider an event click. This click event on Chrome browser, it is called A, and on Firefox browser, it is called B. So now if we are working with an application, we'll have to consider A and B both. We'll have to write duplicate code. But first we have to map that code for event A, and next time we'll have to map that code for event B. So there will be a lot of redundant code in the application. So what React did, it created its own event handling mechanism, and they called it as synthetic events. Now, for each event, they created their own events. So let's say for this click event, they created on click, which we see previously. Now, this on click, it can't directly handle events. But what it does, it's mapping to event A on Chrome browser. And if you are on Mozilla, then it is mapping to event B. Now, we don't have to worry about event A or event B. We can simply handle on click event and it will handle A and B simultaneously. So this reduces our code a lot. We don't have to work with cross browser features. We can directly handle the synthetic events in React, and those synthetic events will be mapping to the native events. So this is what it says. The synthetic event is a cross browser wrapper. These three words are very important from interview perspective. Cross browser wrapper. It works on different browser, so cross browser. Wrapper, because it's the wrapper of the native browser event. Okay. Every React event is an instance of synthetic event. Any event that you are creating inside React, it is the instance of that synthetic event only. Yeah. React reuses the event objects by pooling them, which results in performance gains. Okay. So the next question is differentiate between ES5 and ES6 with respect to React. So I guess we are familiar with ES5 and ES6. So, but here we have to compare these two versions with respect to React. Okay. So the very first difference comes in terms of import statement. Initially in ES5, import statement was made using require. But now the import statement is made using the import keyword. The another difference is in terms of export statement. Initially, we used to do module.exports, but now we can export the component as default components. Yeah, export default and then the component name. Another difference comes in the main calling. Initially, we had to use react.create class, then inside that render. But now we don't have to use .create class. We can directly extend the component class of React, and inside that we can call a render function, render method. Another difference is in the terms of initial props. So if with ES5, the default props are passed using get default props and then a function. This function returns the default props. But now we can directly use .default props on the class name, which will give us an object containing all the default props. Next difference is in lifecycle methods. Initially, lifecycle methods are passed a function. A function was passed to them. But now they themselves are functions. Okay. The another difference is in terms of the React state. Initially, we used to make get initial state and pass a function to that, which will return the initial state. But now we can create a constructor of the class, which will and inside that constructor, we can create the state using this dot state. Okay. Yes. So the next question is differentiate between element and component. So element. it is a simple object that describes a DOM node, DOM document object model, and its attributes and properties. So we can say an element is like a single HTML tag, but don't consider it HTML here, it's JSX. But we can, for the understanding purpose, we can say that it's a simple HTML tag. This, in the code snippet, we can see that a single button tag, it's an element. This single element is a node on the document object model. Okay. Component, it is a function or a class that accepts an input, props, and returns a React component. It will react a single React component. Keep this in mind. A React component can never return more than one single React element. In the code snippet as well, this component is returning only a single div, though that div is nested with some another React elements, but it is returning only single element div. It has to keep references to its DOM nodes and to the instances of the child components. Next is, in the element, it is an immutable description object and we cannot apply methods to it. But to a component, it takes props as an input and returns JSX tree as output. JSX tree, see, it's returning a tree. Why? Because inside a single element that we're returning, there could be multiple nested elements as well. Here, inside the div, we see a paragraph tag and two buttons. So it's returning a tree. Yeah. Next is simplifying the element. We can say the React element is an object representation for some UI. Yes, button, it's representing a UI on the web page, but on the code, it's just a React element. It is an object representation of that UI. But a React component is composed of React elements. Yes, a React component, it contains a lot of different elements inside it. So this was React element versus component. Next question is, what is the purpose of render in React? So React renders HTML to the web page by using a function called React DOM.render. This function is used to render anything on the web page. React DOM.render function takes two arguments, HTML code and an HTML element. The first is my table. It's an HTML code that needs to be rendered on the web browser. And the second argument, it's the HTML element inside which we need to render our code. Here we documented get element by id root. So this my table component, this entire component, it is rendered inside this root element. Okay. So we need to pass two different arguments to this. The purpose of function is to display the specified HTML code inside the specified HTML element. This my table's code will be displayed inside the HTML element, this HTML element. In React, each component must have a render function. It returns a single React component, which is the representation of native DOM component. Keep this in mind. It returns a single React component. React DOM.render cannot return multiple React components. It will return only single component. Okay. So the next question is, in React, everything is a component. Explain this. So the building blocks of React applications UI are components only. We had seen this, different components combined together to make the complete application. React app is divisible into a number of small, independent and reusable components. Keep these two words in mind, independent and reusable. All the components are independent of each other. Changing one component won't affect the another component. And they are usable. Single component can be used at multiple places. If we have created a button, component for button, then we can use same component at different places. Inside our application, we can use that component at multiple places. So it is reusable. React renders each of the components independent of each other. Hence, there is no effect of rendering a component on the rest of the app UI. We saw it in the features that the React uses components. When we are working on large project, different people work on different components and after that they merge them. For one person's component won't affect another person's component. So that is why in React everything is a component. Yeah. Okay. So with this, we came to the last question. Differentiate between React and React Native. Okay. So React.js and React Native. The very first is React.js, it is used for developing web applications, while React Native, it is used for developing mobile applications. React.js it provides us high security, but security is less in React Native as compared to React.js. There are a lot of factors because which we are saying that security is less, which these factors are beyond the scope of this video. So we'll make another video for that in future, but right now we don't need that. In React.js, it uses HTML tags like div, h1, span, anchor tag, all these tags. All the HTML tags are used in React.js. But in React Native, no HTML tag is used. Instead, it uses tags like view, text, image, touchable opacity, etc. Okay, these are the tags which React Native uses. Keep this in mind. No HTML tags are used. So sometimes people say that React.js and React Native, they are same, but they are not same. The main difference which we can see is that the tags are different. React Native doesn't use HTML tags. In React.js, virtual DOM is used to render the code on the browser, while in React Native, it uses its own API to render the code. This DOM feature, it's only applicable. This DOM feature, it is only available on the web browsers. But mobile applications, they don't need web browser. So in order to render the code, in order to render the API, no, sorry, not the API, in order to render the application, mobile application, React Native has its own inbuilt API, which renders the code. So next is React.js, it reuses code components to save a lot of time. While in React Native develops hybrid apps. What are hybrid apps? We have to write the code only once, and that single code could be used on iOS and on Android as well. So this saves a lot of time. We don't have to write code multiple times. Okay. So next is it React.js, it uses React router for navigating between web pages. If we have to navigate different web pages between different web pages in React, then we have to use React router. But in React Native, it has its own inbuilt navigator library for navigation. It doesn't have to use React router. It has its own inbuilt navigation library. Okay. So with this, we have completed all our questions in this video. So we have completed this part, basic React questions, and you can see the alternate questions as well. Sometimes the interviewer directly don't ask you the question. They can turn around the question a little bit and then ask you. So yes, if you like the video, then please share it with everyone. This is a very important video, and all the interview questions we'll be covering in the further videos as well. So stay tuned to the channel, and for any help or if you have any doubt, either you can comment, ask me in the comments, or you can join my Telegram group as well. You can find the link in the descriptions. Okay. Thank you. Tata. Bye bye.